who should St. Louis back in the NHL playoffs? Yes, we're 4 and 5 games into these conference finals, getting ready to set up the Stanley Cup, but there's a lot of St. Louis connections. You've got Vegas with Alex Pietrangelo and Ryan Reaves. You've got Tampa Bay with Pat Maroon. You got the Islanders with Scott Mayfield. And let's see, who's left? Oh, wait, Montreal. And that's Jake Allen and Joel Edmondson. So a lot of St. Louis connections, whether homegrown or just Blues connections. The playoffs have been phenomenal in my mind. First off, the fact that Colorado got just ousted pretty easily. Yeah, buddy. Suck it, Kroenke. But you got Montreal making a run. They are definitely an underrated team. You've got the Islanders, a team that I believe are built to beat Tampa Bay. But you still got Tampa Bay just absolutely crushing it. Last I checked, it was 4-0 Tampa in Game 5. So it's not like they're going away easily. And then you got Vegas, who, let's just put it this way. Vegas is one of those media darlings that now everybody hates, and they've only been in existence for about 5 years. So it's absolutely crazy. So I got to ask you first, Scott, before we bring in our buddies, who do you have a rooting interest in as far as the St. Louis connections? Who do you want to make it to the finals and win due to their St. Louis connections?
Well, I want Patty Maroon to get back again. Let's see how many cups that guy can win. And the fact that they're playing the Islanders, because we know anybody that's ever watched this show knows that I don't have a whole lot of love for the Islanders. So I'm definitely rooting for Pat in the old Tampa Bay down there for sure.
See, I'm a big Barry Trotz fan. I hated him when he was in Nashville. The frustration level of playing the Predators hasn't gone away, but it was at the height when Barry Trotz was there coaching. But then he went to Washington. I'm a big Ovechkin fan. I loved what he did in Washington, winning the cup with them. And I've really liked what he's done in New York, especially after they lose out on John Tavares. Everybody thinks they're going downhill. They've got the situation where they're moving between arenas and cities and all that kind of stuff. And yet he's been able to get this team to really bear down and focus on what their goals are, and that's to make it and win a Stanley Cup. I like the Islanders. I hope the Islanders. Honestly, I'm looking forward to an Islanders-Canadiens final. The NHL will hate it because of the ratings, but I would love to see a Canadiens-Islanders matchup and just see how that plays out. I think it'll end up being Vegas and Tampa Bay. I think both of those teams will eventually rise to the top and really prove to everybody that they are the two best teams out there. And our friend Mike says Pietrangelo should have stayed with the Blues and not chased the money. Vegas needs to be in the league for at least 10 years before winning a cup. We've touched on Pietrangelo in the past. Everybody blames Doug Armstrong for Pietrangelo not re-signing in St. Louis. It is on Alex. It was on him that he did not want to come back to St. Louis. The Blues offered him what I believe was a very fair contract offer. Doug Armstrong up front saying, look, I'm not giving you a no movement clause. I'm not giving you control over the franchise. If you really want to be here, you should be here, and you'll take this contract. Well, Pietrangelo, to his every power to him. He's got his cup. He's got his prestige. Now he had to go take care of his family. I get it. I don't know if he's going to be able to have the same success, although he's looked like the Conn Smythe winner so far in the playoffs. He's looked phenomenal and definitely worth the money that they paid for him this year. And yeah, Vegas being in the league for 10 years before winning a cup, I think that's kind of all of us Blues fans saying, hey, we waited 55 plus years for our Stanley Cup. The least you could do is wait 10. So, it is what it is on that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've talked about it a million times. I don't have any issue with Petro taking the bigger contract, taking care of his family. He won a cup here. He helped St. Louis finally raise that cup. So more power to him. And, he needed to have, what does he have, an 18-car garage at his house, something like that?
Something like that. 18 cars and they're filled with strollers. So, it is what it is. You got to be able to store them. So, all right, we're going to bring in Tom Franklin and Blues Fan Reacts now to talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup playoffs and really get their rooting interests in what's going on right now. Because like we said, there's a lot of Blues connections and we got to see where these guys lie. I'm with the Islanders. We got Scott with Tampa. He's over there, Mike. Tom Mason, first off, what have your thoughts been on the playoffs this year? And then tell us who you guys got a rooting interest for.
It's been a fun playoffs. I mean, I feel every series has had a nice story to it. I mean, this series tonight that's going on right now, Tampa versus the Islanders, all the games up until tonight have been very close, and it's been a very tight series. But, of course, Tampa just, cracked open this series 7-0. And I just don't, the series is tied 2-2. I just don't see the Islanders climbing out of a 7-0 hole like this. I mean, weirder things have happened in hockey. That's why you play the game. I just don't see that happening. And then for me, Montreal and Vegas has been one of the most intriguing series, not just for the fact that it's a series that should only happen in the Stanley Cup Finals, because Montreal historically has been in the Eastern Conference, so you have a bit of a crossover going on there. But you have Vegas, who seems to be the divisive team in hockey right now because they've only been in the league for a couple of years. As Mike pointed out, so he feels they should be in the league at least 10 years before winning a cup. I mean, come on, this is the land of opportunity. I mean, every team should have at least a shot, in my opinion. But you have Alex Pietrangelo. This is his first year of that big contract in Vegas, and he's already taken his team to a Western Conference final. Well, I don't want to say he took them, but at least that's an ensemble unit in Vegas. I mean, there's Mark Stone, William Karlsson. They have a lot of strong players. Their goalie tandem, Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury, is probably the best in the playoffs right now. And you have every reason to look at Vegas and say, yeah, this is the favorite. This is the team that should go on to the Stanley Cup final. And they very well could. But Montreal has been like the underdog in this whole playoffs. They entered as the final entrant in the North Division. They took on the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round, a team that all the media outlets in Canada anointed as, the next champions, and, this is their year. And Toronto media is insane when it comes to hockey. That is, I feel like I'm not telling anyone anything new there. Toronto goes up 3-1 in the series, and Montreal comes back and eliminates them in Game 7. It happened again, Toronto, a Game 7 loss in the first round. Shucks.
Did they wear the Boston Bruins jerseys in that game? Because I'm pretty sure that's what did it, right?
I think so. Honestly, I think that might have been the issue. They're wearing them under the jerseys. But then they go on to the next round. They take on Winnipeg, a team that was still ranked higher than Montreal going into the playoffs. They had a better regular season, and Montreal just karate chopped them in the throat and 1-4 straight. Now they're 2-2 against Vegas. They had a chance to go 3-1 last night. They couldn't get the job done in OT, as Mason, you're very well aware of, having watched it with Arizona Sports Guy last night. But that series, I still think that series is up for grabs. I think, you can't discount Montreal at all. I mean, Carey Price has been phenomenal this playoffs. And they do have some former Blues on there, too, with Jake Allen and Joel Edmondson. In fact, Mike pointing out it'd be nice to see Edmondson win the cup again. That would definitely be true. In fact, we actually have a Montreal Canadian fan with us here tonight, King Angus, saying, "Go Habs, go." And I'm going to get to Mason's, picks and his thoughts on this series, because I'm really kind of interested where he stands now in that series. But I think it's going to be Tampa in the finals, and I think I'm hoping, and I think it's going to be Montreal in 7 over Vegas. You just cannot discount those Habs, and it's funny. Vegas going into the season was kind of like my second team in the NHL, like a distant second behind the Blues, but still second team. But after being in the same division with them, I'm down on them. I am down on them. I mean, Mark Stone kind of ruined it for me whenever he took out Bozak. So I've been kind of on the Habs train this whole playoffs. Mason, you've been on the Habs train as well, but you seem pretty happy that Vegas won last night. Explain yourself, buddy.
He wore a Vegas jersey last night.
I did wear a Vegas jersey. I would have worn a Canadians. I would have worn a Canadians jersey if I had a Canadians jersey. But I mean, I had the Mark Stone one before that hit. And the moment that Mark Stone laid that hit, I said, very unfortunate choice here. But I think where I stand right now is after Toronto choked, I'm like, okay, surely you got to root for the Habs going forward, just because he kept the memes alive right? So I'm going with Montreal as my, team going into, hoping that they win the final, just because there are so many players on that team that so deserve a cup. Shea Weber deserves one. Jeff Petrie deserves one. Carey Price especially deserves one. And I wouldn't mind seeing Allen and Edmondson hoist again. So, and plus ending how long has it been? Like 28 years since the Canadian teams won a Stanley Cup. So
1993, and that was Montreal that won that cup for the entire country of Canada.
I would love to see that streak come to an end once again by the hands of the Montreal Canadiens. They don't deserve another cup. They have 24 of them.
Well, they're the Yankees of hockey, essentially. I'm cheering for the Yankees of hockey, and I feel very guilty about that.
Yeah, but still, you'd love to see Montreal, end that drought, not only for Canada but for all those players on the team that deserve it. Really, what it comes down to is I like Montreal, but if you put it on a scale, from here's Montreal, here's Vegas right here, so freaking close, and then here's New York, and here's Tampa. It's down into hell. But really? I don't want Tampa touching the Stanley Cup again. They got their cup. They are how many million over the salary cap? I don't like that. Vegas is over too.
Vegas is over. They had to sit guys at the end of the season.
I know Vegas not as much, but they are still over. But I mean, it's understandable how much over. Tampa Bay is 18 million over. 18 million. That's not right. I don't think they deserve it, and it would be hilarious if they choke to the New York Islanders. I wouldn't mind seeing that. They're kind of like the average team. Like, if they win, they win. Whatever.
They're not going to choke against Islanders. They just went up 8-0. Braden Shen's brother Luke just scored. And
Colorado won game 1 against Vegas 9-1, and then Vegas swept them after that. So
that was
is it really 8-1 right now?
Series to recover from that, though. This is
it really 8-0 right now? Holy hell! But holy crap. But yeah, I would love to see. Well, then if Tampa chokes, that'll just be all that much funnier, wouldn't it? Yeah. You got your. Don't get me wrong. I'd love Pat Maroon to go back to back to back, but my hatred for the Tampa Bay Lightning is just unmatched to that sort of optimism. So definitely, whoever comes out of the West is going to be my Stanley Cup favorite going forward.
So if it is Vegas and Tampa, two teams that have circumvented the cap this year, I mean, do you look at that as essentially cheating? Do you look at that as a loophole that needs to be fixed, or is that something that you look at the Blues and go, hey, next year you better exploit that? What do you if both of those teams end up there, how does your mindset change about who the actual champion is this year?
It sends a message to the league if both of them go into the final. It sends a message that, hey, teams can do this. Nikita Kucherov has been healthy for probably 2 months now. He's intentionally was set out because we knew that he'd be into the playoffs and he'd fucking kill everyone. And they're exactly right. He did just that. He scored he scored 2 goals in his playoff debut. Stamkos scored 2 goals in his debut. It's just once game 1 happened in the first round, I was like, this isn't right. This is not right. And I understand that credit to Tampa for, staying under the salary cap, not having these 2 players and still, making the playoffs. We're on the salary cap. We might be a little over, but we're on the salary cap. And I mean, we made the playoffs too. I don't think that's something to be commended. That's a stupid argument. So, I mean, I think it definitely sends a message to the league hey, there needs to be either a playoff salary cap or there needs to be a roster, a game by game salary cap in the playoffs, or it's just, I don't know what the overall blanket solution would be, but I think there's a very big difference between kind of, getting away with a loophole and straight up exploiting and cheating. And I think that Tampa Bay is cheating. I'm a very firm believer that Tampa Bay is cheating.
It definitely does. It does feel like an exploit with Tampa holding out Kucherov until the playoffs, and then suddenly he's healthy, and not only that, he's healthy, he's fresh. He hasn't had any wear and tear on him this year at all. It kind of reminds me, in baseball, where 20 years ago Roger Clemens would sign with like the Yankees like in August or something like that. So he'd be fresh in the playoffs, and he'd have a healthy arm. Kind of a similar situation there. Arizona Sports Guy makes a good point. Vegas didn't get around the cap though. They had to dress fewer skaters because it would have put them over to bring up another guy. So they kind of penalized themselves a little bit by having like. I remember seeing some of their lineups. I think they had like 5 defensemen one night. Another night they had like I think maybe 3 full lines and like an extra forward or 2, something like that. To me, that was Vegas staying within the confines of the cap, but kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit by not having a full roster every night. And a lot of that was just because they had to do all sorts of maneuvering to get Petro in the offseason, which I guess there was some thought that maybe that would disrupt the locker room a little bit in Vegas. Clearly that did not happen. They're in the conference finals.
I mean, you can make that argument that, yeah, they penalized themselves by sitting guys to stay under the cap, but, they were a team that was one of the top 2 teams in the Western Division. It's not like they were penalizing themselves and saying, oh, look, we're gonna play short and we're still fighting for a playoff spot. And, oh, hey, guess what? How many times did they sat a couple of guys in the playoffs right now?
But they
haven't.
But did they really break any rules, though? I mean, they played.
No, they didn't break any rules.
The league confines. I mean,
but they knowingly put themselves over the cap and knew that they were going to have to sit guys. So like that's the whole thing. It's two sides of the same coin, I think, because Tampa was like, look, we're doing this. We know he's not going to play, and then we're going to bring him back when we can do that. But Vegas,
a little fugazi,
Vegas was like, hey, we're going to sign a crap ton of players, and we may have to sit some guys as the season winds down, but we're going to play them all in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's two sides of the same coin. They both knew what they were doing. It's just one looks a lot shadier than the other one.
It definitely, and Tampa definitely looks very shady in this regard because with all the money they had over the cap and the way they handled Kucherov, it does feel like they gamed the system a little bit, whereas Vegas kind of played within the confines but shot themselves in the foot just a little bit. So I mean, it's not exactly apples to apples. So as a St. Louisan, the topic of this discussion, if you're a St. Louisan, who should you support? Who should you back in the Stanley Cup final? Mason was talking about Tampa got their cup last year. It'd be nice to see Maroon go back to back to back, but he got his cups, and it's like, it'd be the continuation of a great story, but it wouldn't be a new Cinderella story. The Islanders have one St. Louis connection, no former Blues, but they have Scott Mayfield, who is from St. Louis. I believe he's a West County kid, if I'm not mistaken. Islanders, I never really had any pull towards the Islanders at all. I don't dislike them. I'm just kind of on them. Mm-hmm. Vegas, you have Petro and you have Ryan Reaves, 2 guys who were beloved in St. Louis. Reaves, I know I still miss Ryan Reaves. I would do that trade with Pittsburgh in a heartbeat to get Sundqvist and the pick that became Klim Kostin, but I miss him. I do miss him. And Petro, he was a great servant of the Blues for many years. I don't begrudge him for going to Vegas. In the end, he did get us a cup here, and he's approaching his 30s, and he wants to set himself up, for the future. And he got a team to pay what he wanted. So more power to him. And then on the Canadians, you have Jay Gallen, who was one of the most divisive Blues players in history. Now all of a sudden, now that he's gone, everyone loves him.
Oh, not everyone. If you look in the message boards, people still think he's an absolute tool.
Oh, of course. Well, you're always going to have those fans, but it seemed like the rancor for him died a lot during his final year here, and seeing Ville Husso give up softies kind of made us long for Jake Allen once again. I don't understand that. And then you have Joel Edmondson, who kind of an interesting figure, came up with the Blues, got scratched in the playoffs and kind of was an odd man out, became Justin Falk. It's interesting. If you're talking about as a Blues fan, who I feel you should pull for, I would probably say Vegas. But then at the same time, though, they were division rivals, and you had the Mark Stone thing. I almost feel that kind of cancels things out. What do you guys think? First, Mason, let's go to you.
I'm just reacting at a tweet that's coming out of the Fire the Cannon podcast. They're saying that Matthew Tkachuk wants out of Calgary.
Yes.
Wants out, as in wants a trade this offseason.
Let the Tkachuk for the Lou rumors begin right now.
Tkachuk for the Lou. Let's do it. No.
I think we can make a shirt up for that.
I think we can. If only we knew a good shirt maker, Mason. Excuse me.
Oh my God! You haven't approached me. You haven't told me
this isn't
to design
approach.
merch.
This isn't a
If you want a merch design,
you
tell
offered to
me.
make merch for us.
I will make merch for us.
You're gonna make damn good merch for us.
I'll make damn good merch for us.
Clearly, we got too emotional for Scott. He just.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he straight up dabbed. He threw his camera in disgust.
We'll get him back here in just a second. But yeah, I mean, for me, I look at it and there's one guy in that whole group. I mean, Mayfield, yes, is part of it, but there's one guy in that whole group that I look at and I go, damn, I want him to have a cup. And that's Ryan Reaves. And I know I don't want to root for Vegas, but I think if I could see Ryan Reaves lift the Stanley Cup, I think I would be happy. And that would complete kind of like that time of my life where that was my team. You had guys like Ryan Reaves, Edmondson, Allen, Pietrangelo, Pat Maroon at the end there. But all those guys, to see the hard work that they put in with the Blues, and a couple of them didn't get it with here, but a lot of them did. To see Ryan Reaves be able to lift the Stanley Cup, that would be validation for me.
Yeah, and I'd be very happy for him because he's definitely a guy that's earned it. I mean, he's one of the really last remaining true enforcers, of his ilk. And he's also kind of a divisive guy in the NHL. He's not as hated as like Tom Wilson is, but he doesn't have his share of fans either. So that would be kind of interesting to see how people would react to him lifting the cup and just Vegas in general. Which It's interesting. Vegas has been in the league this is year number 3 or 4 now. And for a team so new to draw so much emotion out of fans, I mean, that tells me that franchise is succeeding.
Yep.
Because I remember when the Sharks came into the league in the 90s, and the Senators in the 90s, they didn't even raise a blip in the league. They were so bad for so long, and in fact, really, people still don't care about the Senators. So it's they never really pulled themselves out. Whereas the Knights, they're glitzy and they're a strong team, and everyone loves to hate them. So to me, I mean, Vegas is one of the best NHL success stories, I think, in the last probably decade or two.
Yep, and I think Seattle is hopefully going to follow that train as well. Maybe not as successful as Vegas, but I think they have a good blueprint, and I think they've got a good fan base. So I'm really excited to see what Seattle is able to bring. The draft is roughly a month away as well. That's a great point by King Angus.
Yeah, on the Kucherov thing, the only way I can see to fix it, make it like baseball. A 10-day IL, a 60-day IL, etc. Right now in the NHL, you can just put a player on the IL for the entire season. No limit for how long, and he can just stay there pretty much, and you don't have to do anything with him.
And you get his money back too if he's on there for a long time.
If you do the LTIR thing, which the Blues did take advantage of with Steen and Tarasenko, at least for a little bit of the season. So, yeah, there needs to be some sort of reform there. But at the same time, I mean, this was a league that before COVID, teams were kind of planning on the salary cap going up. They were planning on like an $87-88 million salary cap after this past season. Well, now that cap is flat. So, I mean, it's going to have a big. I wonder if Tampa Bay ends up lifting the cup this year with what they did with Kucherov, or Vegas lifts the cup and they were willing to sit in almost an entire line of players because of the cap. I wonder if other teams will follow their suit. And
it's possible.
And I think it's quite possible they may have started a trend.
I think you're right.
Whether it's a good one or not, I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Well, Tom, Mason, thank you guys for taking a few minutes out to talk about the playoffs. We'll see a lot of you guys here on Toasted Tavern. Tom will be with us tomorrow night with Scott. I have hockey. So, yeah, I actually still play. So, I gotta get my exercise in for the week. So I'll I'll be doing that. And Mason will be with us throughout the summer and into next year as well. So, guys, thanks for joining us. We're going to kind of wrap up things, talking about some of the NBA and the NCAA here as well.
Just one final thing, as part of Toast of St. Louis, we will have a Blues podcast coming up here in the next month or two. So watch out for that. Of course, the three of us were part of Blue Notes, for 2 years with the Hockey Podcast Network. And we've kind of combined our forces, if you will, into Toast of St. Louis and the Toast of Tavern. So, we will be back with Blues content probably once free agency gets going or when Matthew Tkachuk gets traded to the Blues.
It might happen. You never know. We're gonna have to do a trade special, like one of those. Hey, who would you trade? What are your fantasy trades? All that kind of stuff. We have to do something like that.
Absolutely.
If Matthew Tkachuk is a St. Louis Blue this season, that video is going to be 10 times the reaction to the Mike Hoffman video. 10 times. Oh my gosh, he would fit so well. He would fit well.
That is an instant jersey purchase, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, I'm immediately. I've got it sitting in my cart right now.
He doesn't have to be traded here. Just make a Blues jersey with Tkachuk's
I have a custom one through Fanatics.com ready to hit send.
For new episodes, merchandise, and behind-the-scenes content, be sure to visit ToastedSTL.com or follow us on Twitter at ToastedSt. I'm the voice of the Blues, Tom Calhoun. Let's get toasted!